Let me tell you about this guy.
I'll tell you about this fucker right here.
Yeah.
Mike, boomers.
We already did that one. We're talking about millennials.
Oh, the same shit, different generation, right? Mike, the millennials. These guys are all out here telling us, ooh, you wouldn't understand because you weren't born in the same years as me. Like, shut the up, Sarah. I know what a brownie tastes like from an easy bake oven just as much as you do. That little light bulb ain't doing shit for you, okay? This bullshit. Oh, let me post this. I'm a traveler, even though I went to this Costa Rica at some point 10 years ago, but oh, look at me, I'm a traveler and all this other bullshit. It's dumb. I hate it.
So let me defend millennials.
No.
All right. So I'm going to give me a moment. I'm going to think about.
Fine, but you can only have a moment.
Okay. So how do I defend millennials? Well, no, that's Gen X. Well, there's actually no, that's Gen Z. I got it. Millennials suck.
Took you that long to figure that out, huh?
No, I went through all of the endearing qualities of a millennial, and I just came up with they suck.
Yeah, you got to get those gears going about them. Yeah. This whole need for an entire generation to just define themselves as being different than everybody else, just to end up exactly the same way as the boomers, and they don't realize it. It's ridiculous. I'm kind of like lost for words.
Yeah, because think about it. Like, the boomers, self-involved.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they won't retire, hog the spotlight. Their whole flower children is, they want to call it a war protest, but it's like, we're protesting the Vietnam War. Look at me, right? Millennials, exact same thing. Everything they do is about getting attention to themselves. They're overly sensitive. You hurt my feelings. Pay attention to me, right?
Yeah.
Self-centered, just like boomers. Everything has a circle around my wants, my needs, my desires. It's like, oh, hurt me. I'm a victim. It's just a load of crap. And boomers recreated themselves. Boomers won't admit it, and millennials won't accept it. It's crazy.
Yep, it is. They all get into this like, oh my God, like, oh, look at me, I'm a Hufflepuff. Like, shut the up, Sarah. Just say you got bullied in high school and get over yourself.
So what's a Hufflepuff?
I don't know, some shit from Harry Potter. They all have to have their Harry Potter houses, drinking out of their Harry Potter mug, all reading and scrolling through BuzzFeed.
All right.
Going and taking their BuzzFeed what do you call it? They have all these like BuzzFeed things that like tell you which like Harry Potter house you are, or which 90s movie you most identify with, or like all of these things. They need to take all these quizzes to figure out how they should define themselves. It's stupid.
So I actually put some thought to it, and I have a handful of things that I believe to be true about millennials.
Okay.
All right. One, they aren't loyal except to themselves. All right. They sway with the whim that they're particularly feeling. All right. They don't like to go to work. Right. I think they were secretly ecstatic and faking depression with COVID, because now it's like, I don't have to go to work. I can stay at home, and I can actually use COVID to get a lot of attention to myself. And then I can like work for 2 hours and say it took me 6 hours, and just kind of play video games or, smoke Harry Potter joints or whatever it is that they do. All right. And then when things go bad because they're super lazy, they just start blaming others. Well, I was never told I needed to do that part. It's like, okay, so you're working from home. You're going to be working from your laptop. We shouldn't have to tell you that you have to turn it on. Well, nobody told me I needed to turn on my laptop.
Nobody told me that I have to shit in the toilet. That's ridiculous.
And then they are overly sensitive while at the same time being insensitive.
Yep.
Right? It's like, you're such a douchebag. How can you like hurt my feelings like that? It's like, what? It's like, you can't call people's names, asshole.
Like, ma'am, I just asked you if you wanted hot or ice. Like,
Exactly. That's sexist, you know?
how dare you assume the way I take my coffee?
Yeah. I like it in between. Why can't there be an in between choice, huh? It's like, oh my God. And then they're prideful and they can't be wrong. Even when they're wrong, they can't accept it. So they have to change everything. It's like, you use a word incorrectly. Okay, well, we're just, instead of admitting we used the wrong word, we're just going to change the entire meaning of the word.
Just gonna redefine it.
Yeah.
And that's what they want to do. They want to redefine everything. They want to mix it up, and it's got to be all different. It can't be the same as anything else. And there are things that have worked for a long time that still work.
Absolutely. And then the last point.
Don't fix it.
Last point, and then we can just go and bash on all of these things. But my last point is, they think they are just so smart, but they get easily sucked into the media propaganda. You know,
they get sucked into it just as much as boomers. It's just the opposite side of it. Like, they get sucked into the social media propaganda rather than the 9 to 5 news or whatever.
Right, exactly. And it's very faddish, and all it takes is one celebrity to tell a lie, and now suddenly that has to be the truth. And then it spreads like a freaking wildfire, and then it gets debunked 6 times, but they don't bother listening to the debunk, and they just keep believing the propaganda that it started out with. And it's just crazy how they will latch onto something, and even if it hurts them, they will latch onto it and hurt themselves rather than to say, oh, I was misinformed, it isn't true.
Yeah, basically along the same lines of how they like to make procrastinating a personality quirk. They're like, oh, I'm a big procrastinator.
Right.
It's just my personality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a spaghetti. Ooh, look at me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
I put this stuff together and
isn't it weird how you put it together and you're like, oh shit, I thought I just did this segment. We just did a segment on the boomers. I swear to God, this is different.
Yeah, well, I guess there might be a couple. I mean, like, the millennials don't go to work and boomers won't leave work.
But that's the thing. They got to be so different. It's like, right. I don't want to go because they went all the time.
So millennials won't leave the house and boomers won't leave the office.
Which is funny. Well, it's interesting they don't get along very well because they never see each other. One's never home, the one's always home.
Well, the boomers covet the youth and the millennials covet the income.
Oh, God. So just... I don't remember all of the definitions on the millennials. Honestly, I tried reading about them and I was like, oh shit, this is just all the same shit repeated over again. But I know they're 81 to 96. That's their age range, I believe. I think it's 81, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So 81 to 96. And that's about all I know about them. Yeah. Besides all of the other shitty things.
They're 81 to 96 and they're useless. Right. I know. So here's another interesting thing. Boomers were the largest generation group when they were born in that time period, right?
Yeah. Baby boom.
Yeah. The current largest generation are the millennials.
I thought Gen Z is now the largest, no?
Nope. There's 72.24 million.
Oh, yeah. Millennials. Mm-hmm. Yep. Largest generation as of 2022. Oh, God, that's so many of them.
Mm-hmm.
How do we let it become this way?
Well, the free love generation produced a lot of kids. Go figure.
Well, so I'm curious, what, then the next gen's going to be like that are all coming from millennials, like this generation alpha group. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they turn out. Like, are they going to follow this trend of being very similar but different than their parents? Or are they going to be more like Gen Z?
Honestly, I'm just hoping a big asteroid just hits the Earth and ends the whole experiment.
Like, all right, shut off the simulation now. We're done. We're good. We got all the data we needed. This D of a science fair project isn't going anywhere.
Somewhere along the lines where they peaked out and we're returning to apes. I don't believe we came from apes, but just,
That's the other bullshit thing. At least for us Gen Z, they get to die first. That's not fair. Like, we're the ones out here that are considered to be the more like depressed, anxiety, all of that stuff. Like, we want to go first.
Are you feeling a little emo?
Yeah, it's not fair. We had our emo phase in 3rd grade. They had it in 7th. It's not fair.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I don't want to get into Gen Z too much on this episode, but there are a lot of things, and people watching can probably tell, there's a lot of things that Gen X and Gen Z agrees on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I find it interesting because
it's the hair.
It's fantastic hair, by the way. I mean,
it's the flip,
the flip. I mean, I look at it and I'm like, this guy probably should have been an Asian dude with that hair. But since we started, decided to do this podcast, I've been paying more attention to Gen Z and a little bit more to you, and trying to listen to what you're saying from a generational perspective. And it's kind of interesting because it's like, I see a lot of similarities in our generations. So I'm kind of curious to how you guys turn out also.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that millennials don't see the similarities between themselves and the boomer generation. I like it, and it kind of goes back along the lines of those things that you said earlier about how they can acknowledge that they're the same, or can acknowledge that they're wrong about certain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Socially, they're not the same, right? Very different on the social scale on average. But the way they act, the way they,
move in society,
move throughout society, right? They're very similar. And I'm sorry to tell all of you millennials this, but you're just like your parents. I don't know what to tell you.
If they're boomers, you're boomer light.
And the millennials are growing up, right? So I'm sorry to tell you for the boomers also, anyone below 50 is not a millennial. We're not all looped together and lumped together in the same, age spectrum. But yeah, I mean, they're getting older, and, there's always that saying of like, oh, when you get older, like, you become your parents, and like, you guys are getting older and you're becoming your parents. I'm sorry to tell you. And you're not so different from the Gen Z that you hate either. Like, you make fun of us like, oh, what the are you guys doing out here eating Tide Pods, as if you weren't planking on top of balconies and roofs for a whole 3-year period. Like, shit, you did stupid things too. You just don't want to admit it, because as soon as we point them out, you're like, oh, I didn't do that. I don't know what you're talking about. There are these guys over here.
It's an interesting old person voice you got there.
Yeah. It's the best one I got.
Oh, okay. All right. So the other thing I have a problem with millennials is, so they view their morality as just superior morality.
Right.
All right. So, and because of that, and their moral compass and their self-indulgence, they are definitely an ends justifies the means, just because it adheres to their values, and their values are more special than our values.
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't want to, like you said, I don't want to get along with you too much, but Gen X, I think, does a really good job at, and I think Gen Z is starting to go this way as well, at least more so than the millennials, but Gen X does a really good job at being able to have a conversation about whatever the topic is and still hear the other person out, regardless if they agree, disagree, whatever the topic is, whatever the case may be. All the conversations that you and I have, whether we agree, disagree, whatever, whether they're on or off this podcast, still willing to hear the person out from their perspective. Millennials just aren't. They just don't want to hear any other perspective besides their own.
Yeah. I think the prototypical millennial looks and sounds like this. La, 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 la. So it's amazing how that really works, you know. For the Gen Xer, to get to your point, is we were raised independent, so we kind of had to figure things out our own. You know, we had to burn the corn in the saucepan while we're trying to figure out and learn how to cook and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the boomers and the millennials, parent-child version, I think they're more enmeshed.
Yeah.
And that's a therapeutical term or therapy term, so look it up. But I think they're more enmeshed.
I'm going to look it up. Go ahead, keep talking.
And so that's why they're much more like each other than we are with ours, you know? Because my parents, we'll stick with my dad because my mom's Vietnamese, raised in the Vietnamese culture, and we're talking about a Western society generational topic. So my dad was technically a boomer, but he was the military class.
Yeah, well, and I think we talked about it in the last one about the boomers. We kind of addressed that he was really on the cusp and didn't really share a lot of the same things as like the boomers, quote unquote, are typically described as.
Right. Yeah, my dad was more of the I will whoop your ass kind of a boomer, where the other boomer is like, oh, we can't use corporal punishment. It's going to scar them.
So, for all of you out there that had to go and Google the word, I'll just give it to you since Mike so rudely did not. So enmeshment is the psychological term that describes a blurring of boundaries between people, typically between family members.
Mm-hmm.
A good example of this, you know, if you're in somewhere in the deep south, you may have a little enmeshment with your family, you know? So think of it like that, but mentally.
Right. So enmeshment will be the parent and the child, they're enmeshed. And so now there's not the authority figure of the parent. It's more of a friendship and a negotiation between the two, even though the child isn't developed enough and mature enough to make the decisions.
Yeah. And I think there becomes a point. So from my perspective, right, in my opinion, I'm really good friends with my mom, but I'm an adult, or at least I like to call myself an adult.
You're getting there.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I think my brain developed this year. But like her and I are good friends, but and my sister and my mom are, you know, I like to think good friends too. And we talk about a lot of stuff, but we're adults now. We roughly have some things figured out now, and we're not sitting there trying to test our parents' boundaries anymore and things like that. So we can be friends now. It doesn't have to be this weird like, oh, I'm gonna spank you. If she tried to spank me now, it'd become really strange. It'd become real Alabama real fast.
So you're in that cute stage now where you can tell your mom all the things you got away with when you were younger, and she can reply with all the things that she knew about and you only thought she didn't know about, and she let you get away with.
Well, no, let's not make them public here. I don't want those things.
So way off topic, I kind of want to talk about something. So 25 is that whole fully developed brain thing, but
I did it, boys.
I think for me, and I think it's pretty common, when I was in my 30s, I think that's when things really clicked for me and in my brain. So I got really efficient. I knew how I learned. I knew what I needed to do to retain information. And so I was actually in college in my 30s, and things were just clicking for me. Boom, 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 boom. And it was in my 30s. So I think just because you're in your 20s, your brain's fully developed. I think 10 years from now, things are really going to just start clicking for you. It's like boom, boom. You have this body of experience that now you don't have to figure this out because you have that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just going to build on that. And you, and maybe you are the only Gen Zer that has a really good trajectory in my mind.
Oh, man.
But, then again, you might get hit by a bus and paralyzed from the neck down, and it's all gone to trash.
Just don't tease me like that. Wait. I had a dream about that last night, and I woke up super happy this morning.
So you're gonna be like that guy in Office Space. You know what that is?
I woke up super happy this morning, and then I got out of bed and realized I could walk, and I was like, "You mean I gotta try today?"
Have you seen the movie Office Space? They made a TV show out of it, but have you seen the movie?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
No, I have not.
All right. So I think, and you guys, this is an opportunity for you to comment, but I think we should assign each other like movies to watch or something like that, and maybe even like do a reaction to it, but at least a topic, make you watch a Gen X movie, and then we can talk about it, and then
we should definitely do that. But I think first, since so far in our podcast, we've gone, we talked a little bit about us, but we've gotten into boomers and millennials. We should watch ones as suggestions from those ages and react to those first.
Okay, so
I think it would be interesting to watch something the boomers would watch or watched when they were younger, back when it was just a play. I think it would be interesting to watch one that millennials revered and grew up on, and then to do what you were just talking about,
okay.
one from you and one from mine. So I think that will be probably not a future podcast, but I think it'll definitely end up on YouTube and on our channel there. Something that really bothers me about the millennials is that they, I think Gen Z has this overall perspective of you do you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do what makes you happy. As long as you're not hurting somebody, you do you. Millennials have the opposite perspective of we do us, you cannot do you.
Right.
You need to do us.
Exactly. It's
they want to get into everybody else's business, and they're so obsessed. They're not as obsessed as much with Gen X, but they're so obsessed with boomers, and they're starting to become super obsessed with Gen Z. And it's like,
well, we're a lost cause, and we're very grateful for it.
Well, you just get forgotten about. Nobody knows who you are.
Well, they're not bright enough to differentiate Gen X from boomers, so they just lump us together, and all we do is hit them with a penny and then have them fight the boomers, and we just eat popcorn and watch. But the millennials, they just kind of, and it goes back to the values I was talking about. Their values are the only values allowed to be had on the planet.
Yeah, and their values have to be first. Like this whole hipster bullshit. Oh my God. So I need to actually define the definition. This is mainly for Mike, because
a hipster, a dumbass that wears skinny jeans, too scrawny to lift an axe, but wants to look and act like Paul Bunyan.
Yeah, that's a pretty good definition. Actually, when I pulled it up, that was the first guy that came up. Very simple. So yeah, that was pretty good. I'm glad you're learning. I feel bad about wearing skinny jeans right now, but other than that, you're learning. Yeah. They're basically the person that wants to be. So the whole idea of being a hipster was wearing trendy clothes before they became trendy, right? So you're basically the person that's like, oh, I see this coming out before everyone else. Like this is about to get released or whatever, where it's been just released and I'm the first on the trend, right? Mm-hmm. But somehow it switched from being trendy to being what you just described. It somehow glasses became hipster, and beards became hipster, and looking like you're been doing cocaine your whole life, but you're wearing a flannel and the skinny jeans or the ripped jeans, and it doesn't make any sense to me. And I feel really bad because all of the way that the hipsters dress now, these millennials that want to be this trend and be hipster, I feel bad because the homeless people were doing it way before them. A good friend of mine put me on a game in a very busy city, and it's called Homeless or Hipster. And the idea is that you have to drive around and you have to guess, are they homeless or are they a hipster? And it can become very complicated to figure out which one's which.
We should do that in Seattle, because they have, like, in Seattle, they have this icon of drug use. It's a needle, it's a space needle. It's all the heroin addicts make their annual trip to their mecca. So we could go there, because I kind of view the Space Needle as kind of like the drugsters and the hipsters hang out there and the homeless. We could go there and it would be pretty random. I mean, we might, get shot at by the gang members or whatever, but we have to go up there and ask them, so we were playing this game and I called you homeless and he called you a hipster. Which one are you?
Okay, well, maybe so, the homeless person, for one, they're just going to spout some nonsense.
Yeah, they're going to be like...
And that's kind of how you tell. But two, if you ask the hipster, they're the millennial, so they're going to get really upset. And they're going to call all of their friends to come over and, like...
They're going to show up on their bicycles.
Yeah. Yep, they're going to show up on their bicycles, their e-bikes.
Oh, yeah, the rich ones that have the e-bikes.
Yeah. Their e-bikes, Chad and Becky are gonna come out and try to take us down and all of that stuff. They're gonna be holding their Dutch Bros because they're too good for Starbucks now.
Right.
They're millennials, right? So they can't drink Starbucks.
It's gotta be the brothers.
Yeah, they got the Dutch Bros. They're gonna come out and insult us. Oh man, yeah, they are something. You want to hop on a trend, like, cool. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's how fashion starts, right? A bunch of people are wearing the same
anti-fashion.
Yeah, exactly. It's the whole, it just plays back into the whole, oh, I want to be different. I gotta be different.
Just like their parents.
Yep. Their parents had to be different too.
Mm-hmm.
And look where that's getting them. Alone.
Alone.
They have all the money and they're still alone.
So I went to Quora. I was Googling
I just
millennials.
I just want you to know, by the way, like, you using Quora is it definitely defines you being a Gen X. I just want you to know that.
Well, it was pretty random, all right? I didn't go to Quora. I went to Google looking for why millennials hate millennials.
Yeah, but you saw Quora and you're like, that one.
Well, it gave me this little... You'll understand, all right? The first sentence that I saw was, frankly, most of us suck. All right? So I said, this is the one.
So we use now, just to kind of throw in this perspective, Gen Z now uses Reddit a lot to bounce the questions and
I am very familiar with Reddit, but my problem with Reddit is it doesn't show you as much in the previews. Right?
On Google. Yeah. I guess it doesn't show you as much. I don't, it's funny though. I don't actually use Reddit as much. I just know my generation uses Reddit a lot. I haven't actually searched for things in Reddit inside of Reddit to see if it gives you more previews. I know on Google it doesn't give you too much besides just the question, but it doesn't give you much look into how the question's being answered.
Right. So I went to Google, brought me to Quora, to basically address the question of why millennials suck. And I'll give credit to this person. His name is up there. His name is Keith Slack, and he answered the question. And so I'm going to read what he says. All right?
Okay.
He says, as a millennial, I think I have some insight into this subject. Frankly, most of us suck. I have almost no friends my own age. Most millennials are largely a product of one of the worst, most damaging parenting strategies ever conceived of. Boomer. If a person is told they are special, can have anything they want, and everyone else is a bully and wrong, handed participation trophies, played sports where no score is kept, etc., that person will grow up with unrealistic expectations of the world. Couple that with the internet and social media allowing people to share a false representation of their lives with the entire world, and of course, most millennials are not prepared for existing in the real world. Most millennials see the world through an Instagram filter. This is not entirely the fault of millennials. Bad parenting practices and several other things have caused this, most of which millennials are not responsible for. Millennials are, however, responsible for fixing it. Nobody else can or has any reason to accept your warped view of the world. If you want to succeed in the workforce, you will work lousy jobs. You will get the worst tasks assigned to you. You will have to work harder and longer than anyone else. Then you may be able to make the changes that you feel need to be made.
Yeah, they just want to assume that they're going to make the change without actually putting in the work.
Yeah. So my first job is I'm CEO of XYZ Corporation.
Well, yeah, then that's what they do. They start their own company that's some bullshit startup, and they become CEO.
Yeah, and you know what? This still mirrors their dad and their mom, all right? Because you know what happened with the parents is they went to elementary school and high school and then college, and then they became teachers, and then they became professors, and they never left the education system. So now the millennials come out there and they go to college, they get stupid ass French literature degrees, and you know, I've got a master's degree on Lord of the Rings trilogy. I've got master's degree in Tolkien literature. And it's like, I like Tolkien stuff, but it's not a degree, you know? And then they can't do anything with it, but then they fabricate a company. I guess that's good for them to be creative and be able to come up with something and make money off of it.
Yeah, but they just come up with bullshit. It's not good. Like so what pisses me off about them the most is they are the ones, and we got into this in our first episode, they are the ones trying to pull the scam of this new side hustle culture on Gen Z. So to be clear, there's nothing wrong with trying to start something on the side. That's what we're doing right now.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with it. But this idea of like, you're for sure gonna make millions by doing this thing on the side, it's not just, oh, let me just pick this thing up from Alibaba and sell it for $60 more on Amazon, and now I'm gonna make millions. Like, it doesn't work like that. But for some reason, millennials are the ones that are trying to scam Gen Z out of it. So they couldn't get the inheritance from their parents because they wouldn't let go of it. So they're like, oh, okay, what do we gotta do? Gen Z, I got it. We're gonna take all of your money. We're gonna sell these weird ass side hustle books, and it's just bullshit. You're not helping anybody by doing this.
We're gonna financially bitch slap baby brother.
Yeah, and this whole idea of like, oh my God, we gotta work together and we gotta change the world and all of this stuff. That's great, but when you're trying to bitch slap baby brother while you're doing it, it just doesn't work. You're the same people that are driving around in your f***ing slammed Hondas with your goddamn lawnmower engine on the back, going around protesting climate change. Like, it just it's so backwards. It doesn't make any sense.
I think when you are out there protesting climate change, and we're doing
protesting for climate change, sorry.
We're out here, we're doing all this stuff to make the world better for you, and you're not appreciating it. You need to appreciate me, and since you're not, we're going to just take your stuff.
Yeah, it's all an act. It's all you got to appreciate me. It's not, let's actually fix this thing. It's, oh, you need to appreciate.
It's like when there was like the hostage crisis where like these women were kidnapped in the Middle East. It wasn't send soldiers in there. It was a hashtag movement on Twitter. I was like, I'm I'm not sure that the terrorists really care about that. We're going to embarrass them, and then they'll just let them go.
Well,
Hashtag set them free. Sorry, I'm not sure the Taliban care about Twitter. So what did you think about this millennials? I'll call it a rant. I think it was a pretty good rant.
yeah, good to see that there is 1 out of the 72 million of you that that sees the error in your ways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think most of what they said is accurate. I think that describes their generation very well, and I think it's good for. I'm hoping that our opinions are actually just what is being broadcasted in social media, and that's not how they actually are. It's a failing dream of mine, but I'm still hoping. I'm just hanging on to.
And that's when you do the eye test, right? So you go out into the world and you look around at the millennials and you go, is what I'm seeing in real life different than what I'm seeing online?
Yeah, and I think so. I have friends that are millennials, right? It's not that hard when 2 years earlier than me, they're millennials.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have friends that fall into that like 30s, early 40s category that are millennials. And in my opinion, they're not the typical millennial, but I also chose them as my friend. And so there's a reason.
Right. Like if there was a typical millennial, they wouldn't be my friend.
But I would say most of what I see and what we said when I walk around is true, unfortunately.
So
at least in my opinion.
So to take this down a little bit of a rabbit hole, I think what we're seeing.
Can it be a gopher hole?
Sure, why not?
Sorry, I just thought it would be fun.
Okay. Caddyshack. We do a gopher hole. You don't know what Caddyshack is, but anyway.
I can look it up, damn it. I looked up what enmesh means, or whatever you said.
So we could go down a gopher hole, but urban areas, cities have become huge in populations, right? So there was a time in this country where using the election cycle where you could, if you didn't win the big cities, you could still win the popular vote,
Mm-hmm.
right? But now cities have gotten so big that the popular vote from the urban people is larger in number than the rural vote, right? So I think maybe we're seeing like the difference between a rural millennial and an urban millennial, right? So the millennial in LA versus the millennial in Pryor, Oklahoma are probably very different.
Yeah. Well, there's a completely different set of values when you're in a rural environment. My God. That was difficult.
It's all right. Let the Asian guy help you with your English.
When you're out in the boondocks, it's a completely different culture than when you're in the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very different perspectives, different ways of growing up. You are around, when you're in an urban area, you're around many different types of people all the time. Whereas typically in the, and I'm not trying to say the word again, it's just out in the boondocks, you don't get as much interaction with different types of people. And a lot of them are more blue collar-esque than you have in LA, but that's because everybody in LA is a CEO and, they're out there making sure that LA has enough food.
Right. Urban areas tend to have soft jobs and rural areas, that's how you say it, have hard jobs.
Yep.
Right. So when I say hard, I'm not talking about, this job is more difficult. It's like hard jobs as in lifting bales of hay and breaking sweat kind of stuff, as opposed to the soft jobs, which would be, all of your accountings and
growing your goddamn almonds for your almond milk, you asshole.
Right. How do you get the milk out of that
very carefully.
So I kind of wonder if we're going to have to start looking at America differently with how big cities are getting in population. And those are the people that are doing the social media and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably something to that and looking at it differently. It's just much. I'm sure I'm definitely not an expert on any of this by any means. I'm sure it's so much harder to try to get the perspective of somebody in a rural area in comparison to people. Oh God, I'm gonna spit on myself. Jesus.
You can say boondocks.
I'm pulling Joe Biden right now. I don't know what the hell's going on.
BFE works also.
Yeah, anyways, I'm sure that it's much harder to gather that data and to analyze from that perspective when the majority are in the cities instead of being in that rural environment.
Right.
So
you would say the majority of the population is like this, but maybe the majority of the country is not.
yeah, and to be honest with you, I don't know for millennials, like, I'm sorry, I don't know if that makes it really any better, because now you have millennials that are probably, maybe that guy's the minority, but now you just have millennials that are even more like boomers.
Well, yeah, I think it's much more problematic because the benefit of being in an urban area is you have that diversity. You get to see people of all colors and backgrounds and that kind of stuff. Whereas if you're in Pryor, Oklahoma,
Well, I think in Seattle they just get to see more of you, but
but in Pryor, Oklahoma, there's a population of 3,200 and it's 99% white people, right? So the only time they get to see minorities and people like me is on TV, and then it becomes how are we always represented on
or
TV?
do this podcast. Hey,
Right.
you watch us.
So that's right. So then the urban areas, they get into their cocoon, and so
They never become a butterfly. I'm sorry.
they never become. They just die inside their cocoon, and they melt into this vascuous gel. But they just reinforce their own groupthink, right?
Yeah.
Because they might be diverse in appearance and culture, but they're not diverse in thought.
Yeah, but isn't that just what a millennial is? Just reinforcing your own groupthink?
It absolutely,
really
it
just
absolutely
what they are.
is.
That I think it's crazy how most of them are in these diverse environments and they still just reinforce their own groupthink.
And so it is a problem, but I would rather that their groupthink would be a population of 100 instead of a population of 100,000, right? Because when you have 100,000,
dangerous.
it's like if your population is like that 100, and maybe you find that one guy that thinks differently or that one girl that sees things differently, then you at least have a skosh, and you ultimately just find someone to hate. But when it's
talking about Oklahoma, they sent him through the witch trials.
right. But when it's 100,000, you're more justified in thinking the entire world is like this.
Yep. The other problem that you have with that too is this whole cancel culture thing. The millennials have 100. You guys led this, by the way. Speaking to the millennial group, you guys led this cancel culture thing. And for some clarity for the other generations, it's not Gen Z leading this cause on cancel culture. No. It 100% was started by the millennials and is continuing with them. Gen Z thinks it's fucking ridiculous. We, at least from the people that I know and our perspective, we don't want anything to do with this cancel culture bullshit. Comedy is dying because of it. People cannot laugh at anything or take any sort of jokes. And that's the problem with all that 100,000 that's in that super populated area, is that now you have 100,000 of them canceling all of the people on social media for the stupidest shit.
Well, the millennials were taught by their parents that words hurt, and yeah, they hurt your feelings, and you do want to protect feelings, but the millennials only had the protection. They never were instructed on how to deal with hurt feelings. It's always been hurt my feelings, boomer parents jump in, protect, shield, protect, blame, and then millennials like, oh, so this is how it works.
Yeah, to protect, shield, and just blame somebody else rather than just dealing with what is coming at you. And that's why this episode is going to be the most hated episode by the millennials, because all of them are going to be pissed and they're not going to know what to do with it.
Before we wrap up, I got a question for you. Were we harsher on the millennials than we were on the boomers?
I think that we probably were a little bit harsher on the millennials than the boomers, but in my opinion, the boomers are getting real close to leaving us.
We keep saying that.
Well, that's true. They're getting real close to leaving us. However, the millennials are here to stay for a much longer time.
That's true.
And if we're going to do anything, we need to start shaming them again now so that they still got a chance to change their ways.
So all of you
millennials, like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah, like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified when we hammer on you some more. But actually, boomers and millennials, Gen Zers, and the goo goo gaga alphas out there,
I don't think they're here yet.
Watch the boomer episode and watch this one right now and let us know, were we harsher on the boomers or were we harsher on the millennials?
I think we were harsher on the millennials, but I think that they deserve it. I gotta give some rest to the people that, are finally starting to retire. Some of them, gotta give them a little bit of a break.
Yeah,
it's like they can. I feel bad for them. They can only eat applesauce. I would be grumpy too. If I didn't have any teeth and I could only eat applesauce, I would also be upset. And if I was raised by somebody that didn't have any teeth and could only eat applesauce, I would probably turn out the way millennials turned out.
So we have great grandbaby and great granddad both in diapers in bed, getting soft serve. Oh, kill me before that happens to me.
Oh, man. Okay, so I know this is supposed to be about millennials, but you saying that actually reminded me of a rant that I want to go on real quick about the boomers. I'm just going to tie them all together and all of you at this point.
Okay.
I don't know if a lot of people feel this way about this movie, but Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, right?
Which one?
The new one or the old one?
Johnny
right?
Depp one?
Yeah, either one, right?
Okay.
This example works for both.
All right.
Everybody has their own perspective on who was the real, especially Gen Z. I don't know why we'd like to pick apart these things and who is the real asshole here, besides what the movie tried to portray, right? And the movie really tries hard to convince you that all these kids are the little assholes, right? The real asshole in that movie was Grandpa Joe. This fucker could walk the entire time and just let his family suffer. He is the definition of what we were describing the boomers as. He's like, oh, all of you take care of me and feed me. And now there's chocolate and money involved. And he's like, oh, hang on. I can walk again. Holy shit. He is the real asshole of that movie. Sorry, just had to get that out there. That's what that reminded me of.
I can see the correlation.
Yeah, he's the real dick. Just let his poor millennial children work through and take care of them and let the little boy go to work and all this shit. And this man could walk the entire time. He's like, oh shit, I can walk again. It's a miracle.
He's like, work smarter, not harder. But we all know the millennials are not going to take care of the boomers. We're going to have this explosion of old folks' homes that all these.
No, they're definitely not. And that's something, I know that my generation is not going to agree with this. I don't think at all. Maybe some of them will, but I don't think that they will. I do think it's important that we still take care of the people that raised us our whole life. I would agree. Maybe we don't like quote unquote owe them anything. You chose to have us, all that blah 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 bullshit. But
It's your fault I'm here. I didn't ask for this.
yeah, but I don't think we should just like abandon them and let them just rot and die. Like I don't know. I don't think that's fair. Just
It's not. At the same time, boomers being boomers and thinking they know every damn thing, think they know better than everybody else. And I've got an actual story that we can go into.
we got a few minutes.
But they say they know everything, so they should be planning for their own care,
Mhm.
right? So I have a friend, and she does Airbnb.
Friends?
No, just one.
Oh, okay. Wait. Back up before you go into the story. That means we're not friends?
Her Gen Z. I mean, we got a working relationship here.
Oh, all right.
All right. So she has an Airbnb, and she rented it out to this boomer. Technically, it was two of them, but the woman was doing everything, and the guy was, he was older, and I think he was on the decline, and so she kind of had to do everything. Or she's just Karen. All right. I'm leaning towards Karen, to be honest with you. But so she goes to the Airbnb, and she is just pestering my friend with questions like, what's the Wi-Fi down here? And my friend's like, there is a notebook on the desk that has the Wi-Fi and all the other information in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, okay, I didn't see it. All right. And it was like, there's not enough toilet paper. It's like, she's like, there's 4 rolls of toilet paper there that should get you through 2 weeks.
I hope
right?
at least a night.
And it's like, well, we're concerned. It's like, we're out of toilet paper. And she's like, this is day 2. All right? This is day 2. You can roll your happy ass to the store.
Are you taking laxatives?
Yeah, if you're going, well, we have allergies, and so we're using the TP because there's no Kleenex.
I was wondering where you were going with that. Like, we have allergies, so we're shitting ourselves. Like,
so we're using TP because there's no Kleenex. She's like, there's a box of Kleenex on the desk next to the notebook that has the Wi-Fi password on it. And it's like, oh, we don't know what to do with the sheets. It's like, okay, on the desk, there's this notebook. And she was just like pestering every little thing. There's no mayonnaise and mustard in the fridge. There's no eggs. Like, where's my insulin? It's like, this is an Airbnb.
This isn't daddy daycare.
Yeah,
Okay.
You bring the stuff that you need. I cannot project every single thing for you, you know?
Yeah, well, especially if you're going through toilet paper, like your fucking fat happy ass is sitting there eating Chips Ahoy cookies. I mean, shit.
It's like, what are you doing with this stuff? And it was like, the complaint was, oh, this is a soaking tub, and we're elderly, and it's hard for us to get into. And she's like, we discussed this a week before you checked in, and when I found out the age, I told you very specifically that it's a soaker tub, and there may be some difficulties getting into the tub. So if you want to cancel, I completely understand. I'm not going to charge you a cancellation fee. Nope, didn't want to cancel. Just rather get there and complain about something that you already knew about.
Yeah, well, they're bored. They have nothing better to do except spend their enormous amounts of money they don't want other people to have and go and complain about other people.
Right. And the game's just like, you need to do this, you need to do that. I'm just telling you these things so you can be better.
Yeah. Well, and I think so this is where, we complain about the millennials a little bit more than the boomers. So the boomers have all of this money and they complain about all of this shit. The millennials don't have any money and they complain about all of this shit. At least with money, it gets you somewhere.
Right.
You're just complaining just to complain.
Right. But they don't spend it. So they're just like, I have all the money and I want you to spend your money on me.
The boomers and the millennials.
Millennials suck.
Yeah. And, we know why.
So we'll wrap this up. All right. Next conversation, I think probably should focus on Z and Xers
Yeah,
maybe some pop culture stuff.
The Z and X, we have our issues, but we're the better of the other two. So, we can get into some things about us.
It's going to.
We don't talk about us very often.
Well, it's going to be difficult because the Gen X is that independent, forgotten generation, and you guys are so fresh that you're not established yet to be able to pull a lot of stuff.
Got that nice baby face.
Mm-hmm.
My friends call me Babyface McGee.
Which is kind of funny because there's actually a singer back in the day named Babyface. So
back in them olden days.
So we'll talk about us a little bit.
I don't know why my old people accent their country.
Also, viewers, if there's things that you would like us to discuss, some topics, some current events for us to address or anything like that, just throw it in the comments. We'll read them and we'll pick some or all of them, and we'll make a point to address.
We'll be happy to take suggestions and give our perspective on them. The more obscure the topic, the better, and we can just go in and give our Gen Z and Gen X perspective on things. I think it would also be fun to maybe, Gen Z, we like to do a little role play. I think role playing into like I'm the millennial and you're the boomer and giving their perspective for.
Oh God, those are two dirty places I don't want to live.
You talk about dirty talk. God damn. All right, guys. Thank you for watching another one. Appreciate you guys all liking, commenting, and subscribing and just, supporting us. We really, appreciate all of you that have watched.
Peace be the journey.
You gotta find that camera.
Find the camera. I should just use the other hand.